Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of The Chat. I'm Sue Stewart along with Pat LaRose. We do have a special guest, Angele D'Alessio from the Canadian Mental Health with us, and we're going to talk to her in just a couple of moments, but a big, huge shout out to our friends out on Vincent Massey Drive. Pat, go for it.
Yes, thank you to our sponsor, Riverside Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. For all of you that are in the market for a new vehicle or just want to do a little bit of window shopping, you can check out their inventory at riversidechrysler.ca. They are still able to assist you. They're doing virtual walkthroughs and virtual conversations with potential buyers or just sharing information as needed. The service department is open, and one thing you should know is that they do have an additional courtesy where they will actually drive to your house, pick up your vehicle and bring it to get service, and then bring it back for you when it's done. And then they're doing all the precautions about disinfecting and everything just to make sure that they're staying safe. But they are still able to assist you, and make sure to stay connected with them on social media. That's Riverside Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram.
You know, I have to say, I'm pretty sure soon enough, probably in the next 6 months when summer finally gets here, they may be in the market to be selling convertibles. My goodness, I'm wearing a turtleneck today, and we're in the almost the 6th of May.
Right.
It has been awful chilly, and Mother's Day coming up. Of course, we mentioned it last week that you wanted to plan ahead because of all the curbside pickups and ordering that you might have to do, hopefully from some local vendors in your area, whether it be SD&G, Akwesasne. It is great to support the locals because they're doing their best to keep afloat at this point in time, and I'm sure your mother would appreciate it as well. But leading up to Mother's Day now, we're down to crunch time. Pat and Angele, how are you feeling about it, Angele? Because I know I'm going to be missing whatever usually is brought home from school.
Well, my daughter started doing diamond. Oh, what do you call those? Something diamond, and there's these little beads, and you kind of go by color and by number. Yeah. She started that. She was really motivated to do that whenever school first got out, thinking she'd be bored. And then she ended up watching a whole bunch of Netflix series, and I was supposed to get that for Mother's Day, and it's not even half finished. Diamond dots, that's what it's called. Sorry, it just came to me, diamond dots. So I don't know what I'm going to get, but I do have with me a treasured gift that I got about 3 years ago, which is a mosaic, glass mosaic, and I have it on display. And it's one of my favorite Mother's Day gifts of all times. I think it's, you know, for a 9-10-year-old to do this, I think it's pretty artistic. So I'm not sure what this year is going to bring, but just as long as we're together and Mom gets what she wants, you know, she gets whatever she wants that day. Probably I'm going to ask to get out of doing the dishes and cooking, of course.
I think that's only fair, especially on that one special day. I was showing Pat actually before we chatted with you that I still, those things that they bring home from school they're just so warm to your heart because they're just so proud to get out of their book bag, hopefully not broken, by the time they get home. I still have one. My son is 22 years old now, and I still have something that he made me a long time ago, and it still holds my business cards in my office.
Wow.
So that's when you got to know it means something, when popsicle sticks are the mint in your office.
Yes.
Well, and this is the challenge that most of the fathers or significant others are going to be challenged with this year is we would always get stuff, or the kids would always bring stuff home from Mother's Day. Not to say that you know, we wouldn't do other things to help show our love and appreciation for our wives and our mothers at that time. But now we're going to have to step up and help our kids do something. So I've already been on Pinterest looking at unique, crafty creations that my kids and I can create for my wife. And we'll still make a special day for her with hopefully some flowers and things. But all you spouses and significant others and fathers out there, you're going to have to step up and help your kids do something innovative and nice for their mother this year.
We're making them all nervous, Angele. Oh no.
Well, I think it's understandable with the pandemic that we're not going to be. I think our expectations might be lessened a little bit, and you know, the priority might be shifting a little bit more to that social connection and that time together. But you know, I'm not going to refuse a gift. I'll say that. I'm not going to refuse it, but I think my expectations is that school's out and my husband works, so I won't be too hard on him. I can't say that. I can't speak for other mothers, though. I'm just speaking on behalf of myself.
I was actually reading, before we started this today, because most times it's always more nerve-wracking of what to get mom for Mother's Day. Father's Day, it comes and you're like, yeah, dad'll like this or dad'll like that. He just seems like the easygoing gift person, the easiest one to give to. They're never expecting much. And if you got them a 6-pack of beer or just a day on the golf course, 9 holes even, they'd be like, right on, wasn't expecting that. Mom just seems to be the harder one of the two, but dating back to right from the beginning, I'm assuming because Mother's Day, I understand, started first. Perhaps, I'm only speculating, but because the man of the house was always the one going out, he would be the one to get the raise. He would be the one to get, the pat on the back at work, but you come home, mom's doing the cleaning, the laundry, the watching the kids, doing the cooking, but she was just getting well, that's your job. So I think I'm going to say that's how Mother's Day all began. But then fathers started stepping up, looking after the kids more, being the Mr. Moms, and a lot of men cook now. It's absolutely awesome. So I think maybe that's why it started where moms, they were the harder ones to buy for, just to make sure it was extra special.
You may be right there.
I could be totally making it all up. I'm just.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. That makes sense, because I think from my experience, my mom always loved anything that we made by hand, anything that we did to show our appreciation. And then my father, it was, you just went to the Canadian Tire and bought him a screwdriver set or something. It wasn't I feel like I never put in as much of a crafty effort for my father as I did for my mother.
There, see, it kind of makes sense.
I remember I remember when Home Depot was open, and they had those little workshops for kids. I don't know if you remember those days. Once a month they would you could go with whether it would be for your dad or for your mom, and most of the Father's Day gifts come from Home Depot year after year. Sometimes you got doubles because they use the same pattern every year. So that was the extent of the craftiness for the kids, but they would make little wooden cars for dad. One time though, they had made a toolbox, like a personalized toolbox out of wood. So that was I kind of miss, the fact that stores aren't open, because that was a great opportunity for kids to get involved with their parents.
Yes.
Do you not have any trees in your yard?
No, I don't. Right. No, I have a pool, so we don't have any trees at all. We don't want leaves in the pool.
Well, you may have just gone to the next level if you start chopping down trees for your Pinterest project. Hey, Pat?
Yes, it might happen. But it is a time we do have to step up a little bit, and I just want to encourage everyone listening, or if you're watching, if you're going to surprise your spouse or your mother, try and surprise her with something locally. Try and support one of these local businesses. If you are going to get a gift, or even if you're going to buy crafts to make something, try and get it locally and support one of these independently owned businesses.
Yeah. Okay, so since we're talking about Mother's Day coming up, that could be a good and bad time for a lot of people, especially for some who have their mom or dad in a home right now. They're not able to see them. We are actually in the middle of Mental Health Week, and that's why we're talking with you now with the Canadian Mental Health Society. And leading up to, again, Mother's Day, how are things going, and why are we having this conversation? I'll just put it flat out like that.
So you mean in reference to Mental Health Week, why it's important to talk about mental health? Well, it's been 69 years. So since 1951, I know you put out some numbers there for Mother's Day, but Mental Health Week dates back to 1951. And the reason for Mental Health Week by our national office, so this is a national campaign, Canada-wide, that engages communities, schools, and businesses to really rally around the importance of well-being, celebrate and protect our mental health. So that's really what this week is about. And thinking about that, this timing couldn't be, it couldn't be more timely to be talking about mental health during a crisis like we're experiencing in a pandemic. And the theme this year is, and this was the theme before the pandemic, they just stuck with it, is social connection. And also the hashtag they want us to use is get real. And what they mean by that is get real about how you're feeling. I can imagine if I asked you, Sue, how you doing? You probably automatically respond with I'm fine, when maybe you're not really that, you're not doing that great. But the automatic response is always to say, I'm okay, I'm fine, when we're really not, or some of us are not, in fact. And we have some data to support that I can share with you a little bit later on. But social connection is the underlying theme for this year's Mental Health Week.
I've noticed quite often that is one of the biggest things. Oh, I'm fine, thanks. I'm just like everybody else, or what's there to complain about? There are things to complain about. Our freedom was taken away. In the biggest grand scheme of things, everyone's freedom has been taken away. Whether have been retired and really didn't go out a whole lot to begin with, you're now upset because you can't go out at all. So I'm sure from young and old, this pandemic has really affected. I'd like to hear the statistics though, because I want to know if there's anybody that's actually happy right now.
Right. Well, I'm sure there are some people, but according to the data that was collected by the CMHA National and Maru Matchbox, that's who gathered this data specifically for release during Mental Health Week. So they did share the data for Canada, but I'll kind of narrow it down to Ontario. So 77% of Ontarians want more social connection, which is surprising to me. When I saw that fact, I thought, well, we're using Zoom like we're doing right now. We're, online. We're using social media. We're using the phone more than ever. I'm not a phone person, and I've been using it a lot more than I usually do, spending hours on the phone sometimes, surprisingly. Yet, when surveyed, Ontarians, and actually it was across the board in Canada, they're saying that even with this technology, people are still feeling a lack of social and emotional connection with people. So that's kind of concerning. So I guess technology can't replace human interaction is what I'm getting from this. What are your thoughts, Sue?
I'm really actually happy to hear that technology can't take over the world at this point in time. We need people. We need a hug. Mm-hmm. We need to hold someone's hand. That handshake. I've seen people, and I'm still selling real estate right now, so I'm meeting clients and we're keeping our distance, but the first thing you want to do is shake their hand, and it's like, nope, I can't go near you. I'm sorry. And this is a total stranger to me, and I just want to shake their hand. It may seem silly, but I just noticed it again this morning. So yeah, the social distancing and kids not being able to play with their best friends that they've been playing with for years, it's tough.
I think I think like Sue and I have talked a couple times about just our mental health, and one thing I hope is that I hope what we're going through right now prompts people to talk about it more. Like you were talking about the hashtag Get Real. Hopefully people are more open to speak to it. I feel like I have been, because I've been feeling it and I've been noticing it. And maybe before, like you said, when people ask how you are, I'm fine. And, most of the time you're saying that just to keep moving on with that conversation, or to keep walking down that grocery aisle, where I think now, even myself, I've had more conversations with more people specifically about mental health than I ever have in the past. And I think it's also, on that note, it's also a really good opportunity for us to watch our friends and our family, to see if there's signs that they may be experiencing that, and trying to identify it with them.
And you hear on the news repeatedly, mental health, and one of the statistics was that 50% of Canadians are experiencing increased symptoms of mental health issues. So, the news is even saying that down the road, we're going to see a secondary pandemic, which will be the impact on mental health. So I hope that these kinds of initiatives, Mental Health Week, Mental Illness Awareness Week in October, will encourage people to have, again, real conversations about how they're really feeling, and not minimizing. If you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling anxious right now, know that can be normal. We've never experienced this ever. So this, well, not in my lifetime anyway. So it's real for a lot of people. And I know, Sue, you asked, well, some of the data, did it reveal if anybody was actually feeling happy? And they actually asked about a variety of emotions, and happiness came in at 8%. So, we know negative emotions is what people are feeling right now, not surprisingly. And some of the top emotions that were shared where people are struggling with is frustration, 45% of people are feeling that, that increased frustration, probably because we're being told not, what to do, what not to do. Isolation was up there with 50%. People are just feeling much more isolated than usual. And anxiety was up there by about 49%.
You brought up a good point, the future. Once things kind of start getting back to what everybody's referring as the new normal, how are we as human beings who are wanting to go back to the touchy-feely days, and I'm saying that loosely, but you know what I mean by that, with giving the handshake or the high five or the hug, getting close to people. How is this going to affect us long term? Like even the kids right now, they know not to go close to people. Are we ever going to get back to, I don't know, are we ever going to get back?
That's a good question. I follow the news. I try to limit the news, but I also follow the news. And I do hear that, because a lot of people are saying, the question always comes up on CTV News, when are we going to get back to normal? And when doctors answer that question, they always say, I don't know that we can ever go back to what we presumed is normal. It will be different. The way we work will be different. We're experiencing now, what an interesting point, it's not really about mental health, but we never thought that we could use technology to do our work. And we're seeing now that it's quite possible that we are, mostly productive using Zoom, using all kinds of platforms. And we never thought that this could work on the level that, with everybody working from home, or most people working from home with some exceptions. So that's a change that we may see as a positive in the future, where some people will work in the office, some people will be working from home. And I say this because it will create perhaps a better work-life balance. And it might improve our overall well-being. So there may be some positive things that come of this. But to your comment about, well, how, I think we're going to be a little bit anxious and a little bit nervous about, I'm a person who likes to gather and have events and socialize and invite lots of people over in the summer, all throughout the year. And I even know myself, I'm going to be limiting the groups to smaller groups, and I'm not sure for how long. Even when the restrictions are lifted, I don't know that I would ever go back to a party with 50 people, where I don't know when that's going to happen, because I'm going to be nervous about what could happen.
Going to concerts, going to anything with big, huge crowds, that's going to be tough. Have either of you, I shared something on Facebook, and again, I try to share more of the positive things or more enlightening things, never anything negative or demeaning to anybody. But there was one recently that was shared to me, and I thought everybody should see this. It's called The Great Realization, Hindsight 2020. And it has to do with it was a man reading a story to his kids all about what the world had become. And then all of a sudden, 2020, it all stopped, and people started living in a different way. And once they finally got there, they realized they don't really want to go back to the past way they were living. They liked being closer to family, going out for those walks every night. It really, I actually have goosebumps talking about it right now. But if you get a chance,
me too.
Yeah. Hindsight's 2020.
I think that's a really interesting thing, because I personally feel that you're going to see a shift. Before all this happened, people were spending so much time playing video games, or so much time on social media, or putting so much effort into social media, and the immediate gratification of people liking and commenting on their stuff, where now the things that we took for granted prior to this are now things that we're really appreciating, right? Like you said, going for walks and just being out in nature more, and maybe we're going to appreciate spending that time with our family and our friends more than we had in the past. So I hope we see that change anyways.
I agree. I definitely think that we've reprioritized what really matters. I know, even for myself and my husband, we were doing yard work last weekend, and neighbors would walk by, or with their dog, and normally, I hate to say this, but normally I would just keep working, or my husband would keep working. And the minute we saw somebody walk by that we knew, sort of, that was an acquaintance, we stopped everything we were doing, and we spent, 20 minutes having a conversation about how are they doing and what's new, where I don't think we would have done that had it been 2019. We would have been too busy with whatever life, you know, whatever was going on in our lives, and we probably wouldn't have taken that time. And we enjoyed it. Even my husband said, oh, it was so nice to see other people today. Like, just the smallest thing of human interaction is making such a difference these days.
So there's another point with all of those people that they are going out into stores. They do need their essential items. They're standing in a line and you can see it on their face. I was out not long ago and I could see in their face just that worry of what they're going to do right or wrong, or if they're going to get yelled at that moment. I think what people are having a hard time with is they don't want to make eye contact. They don't want to look like they're trying to socialize. They're keeping their head down. But I think sometimes it's just a matter of a quick little something that makes people know that you care or you're cared about.
Yeah, and when we were talking, I mean, they were on the other side of the street and we kind of sat on the curb and we just kept talking, you know, and we thought we're going to take advantage of this time to socialize, and I think everybody benefited from it.
Absolutely. But again, going forward, what do we help out with people who you may be seeing that are having hard times? Because another one of those things I saw on social media was we might not all be in the same boat, but we are riding the same storm.
Right, exactly. So, you know, this is a good opportunity, and I've been saying this all week, you know, it's a good opportunity to use this theme of social connection to think about, and I think you both mentioned this, is connect with people that, yes, connect with the people that are in our immediate circle, of course, continue those relationships, but like we did, take an opportunity to connect with people outside your immediate circle, or even a neighbor that you know might be, you know, elderly, that isn't getting that social interaction, may not be connected on social media, may not have family and friends nearby, or that can call and check in. Think about other people that are in your surroundings, but not necessarily close connections, and try to reach out to them as well. That would be really important, not only during Mental Health Week, but moving forward.
Yeah, definitely something you'd want to continue doing, because what makes them feel good makes you feel good for just stepping up for that tiny little thing that you can do. Pat, do you have any other questions? I know we've talked about, I don't want to refer to it as mental health with our kids, but they're going to start not understanding. Like I've mentioned before, Angele, I've got, well, he's almost going to be 5, my stepson, and he's not allowed out of the car. But why? You know, I stopped at my parents today, dropped them stuff off. Can I not get out? No, you can't get out. I'd leave the stuff on the porch. We've told him, I think he's in with earshot, we've told him that people have bugs. So he doesn't know much more than that. But how is it going with the youth right now and how they're handling it?
Yeah, can I just elaborate on that just a minute, because I was actually going to ask that same thing, Sue, because last week Sue and we talked a little bit about our kids and how we're explaining it to them, and we got a great resource from the Mental Health Association website where it actually explains how you should talk to your kids about it. But I think this is a really interesting topic, not only because it's such a priority, it should be such a priority in helping our kids understand it, but like my kids are 6 and 4, and the same thing with Sue, like they just think that there's germs, that we're telling them there's germs, and that's why all these things are happening. But what tips do you have on how we should look out for this or have conversations? Because there is a video going viral today. I won't go in details about it. Sue and I watched a little bit of it before the podcast, about a gentleman talking about basically a coronavirus killed my son, but not in the way you think. And his 12-year-old son had committed suicide. So I think it's really important right now for us to make sure that we're not just assuming that our kids are okay, and that we're making the effort to try and understand them and to change some of their habits so they're not spending all day and night playing video games, and that they're actually socializing different ways. So I think maybe we shift the topic onto that for younger kids or teens.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you're bringing this up, because the mayor contacted us last week saying, could we do something on youth mental health? Can I do a Facebook Live? We're getting a lot of questions from parents about youth mental health. And now again, this is coming up again. And so what we, and I can share with you, we had 2 young people from Citadel High School participate in this Facebook Live. And it was really interesting what they had to say, because we assume as parents and maybe as adults that this is not affecting young people. And I guess I'll say youth, because youth are mostly the ones using their technology and their phones and their, you know, iPads and their video games. And, you know, we were under the assumption, I guess, that out of everyone, they're probably the least impacted because they don't really crave that human face-to-face contact. And they stopped us, you know, they stopped us right away and said, that is actually a stereotype. That is actually a misconception, because we are all missing, you know, that interaction with our teachers, with our classmates. Yes, we are comfortable with technology, but it absolutely does not replace hanging out with your friends or giving your friend a hug or going to the movies. You know, they were really wanting to emphasize that they're being equally impacted by the restrictions, by the physical distancing, as much as adults are experiencing it. So I guess that would be the first thing, is I would say not to assume that young people are doing okay. Check in with them regularly and talk about what's going on and how they're feeling. Getting real, getting back to our theme, getting real about their feelings and their mental well-being. And one of the young people, when we asked, what could parents do? And she said exactly that. She said, I really do appreciate when my mom comes down, knocks on the door, or my dad, and asks how my day is going. They just a quick check-in. She actually appreciates that. So that was a recommendation she made. As far as young children go, I remember seeing, you know, because we're always trying to restrict screen time, right? That was before this, we were all like, no, you got to limit your screen time. You got to get outside. You've got to be part of, you know, organized sport or whatever it is. And now they're saying that shouldn't be a priority, because if that's the only way they can connect with their friends, you know, through FaceTime was a big thing that came up, or organizing play dates. If parents could organize play dates through these Zoom, like tomorrow, for example, the Boys and Girls Club contacted all the members, which my son is part of, he's 9, and they're going to do a treasure hunt through Zoom with
cool.
The rest of the members. Yes. So I thought, wow, okay, this is great. We're not meeting face to face, but it'll help, I hope. I don't know. He really was excited about it. It'll help add a little bit of normal to his life that may feel a little chaotic at the moment. So those were some of the recommendations I had seen, that I heard. So again, not worrying too much about the screen time, but making time for other things like exercise and cooking and, you know, learning, trying new things. I know I got my kids involved in cooking. Normally, my daughter loves it, my son not so much, but he's starting to take, you know, he's starting to enjoy doing it a little bit more. So introducing things that they're not used to doing, and having that time together could be a great idea, but not limiting how much time they're chatting with their friends.
This is actually, when you bring up learning new things, or you know, with the cooking and the baking and even doing yard work, this is actually going to bring kids back to how we grew up with chores.
Right.
Make
right.
dinners.
I don't see this as a bad thing at all. No.
I really like how you touched on the physical distancing, not social distancing. And you talked about that a little bit before we started. And I think that's such a great way to word it, because when you say social distancing, you do think that you're supposed to be antisocial, but it's not. You're still required. You should still be social, but physically distance yourself from people, right?
Exactly. We should be more socially connected now more than ever, you know, because we need it. We definitely need it and, you know, the World Health Organization has stated that a factor for good mental health is social connection. It's one of the most important factors. So that's something to think about during Mental Health Week and moving forward.
I think we've talked about this before the last time we had you on, but there are numbers to call, websites to go to if anybody just wants to talk.
Yes, and on that Facebook Live with our mayor, Bernadette Clément, we had 3 youth organizations come on as well to say we're open, because they're seeing a decrease in, which is why we were assuming young people were okay, because there has been less demand on youth mental health services in our community, but that isn't the case. So I think people may not know that services are still being offered, because the majority of the referrals come from schools. So that could be part of it. But child and youth counseling, you know, wanted to mention that they're virtually still connecting, accepting referrals. They're connecting virtually like this with different platforms with their clients or new clients. As well as, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but right before the pandemic, the Youth Wellness Hub had just opened in Cornwall. They had just opened the doors, did a big, a huge announcement about a week prior. They're still offering services as well. So they're going to be starting Netflix parties and all kinds of fun things for youth to connect. So the Youth Wellness Hub, you can find them on Facebook by just Googling child and youth counseling for those who speak English. And then L'Équipe Psychosociale, again, is also continuing to offer their services by phone and virtually. So everyone in mental health, and as well as Canadian Mental Health Association, is still offering services. So if you are concerned, because you mentioned that young person who was at risk of suicide, that young 12-year-old, if you're concerned about your child's mental health, reaching out to the children's mental health services in our community, and if it's a youth, those services apply as well, in addition to the Canadian Mental Health Association. And then there's also, in addition to local services, there's things like Kids Help Phone. They have been very busy texting with young people, live chatting with young people. So they're an additional resource, you know, perhaps in the middle of the night when things are closed, that could be an additional support. Bounce Back, services 15 years of age and older. You can do work on managing anxiety and depression from home. We will mail you the workbooks. And then there's Big White Wall, which is an online kind of support group sort of platform for 16 years of age and older. So there's lots out there to support people. So hopefully any parents listening, but also those services, Big White Wall and Bounce Back, are for adults as well.
I like the idea of being able to text, because sometimes you don't have a voice, or when your voice starts coming out, it cracks and you'd almost want to hang up, right? Like, I love the idea that you can text, there's no face to it. You can be a little bit more open and honest, probably, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why they offer the phone, the live chat like this, like a video, or the texting feature, which the texting with young people is the most popular. But you know, if they want to hear a live person, they have that option as well. So I do have some tips for how to, you know, we've been talking a lot about social connection. I do have a few tips I could share with you on how we can continue to do that. And if you have any ideas, please feel free to jump in and add your own ideas. And these tips I got from a website called mindyourmind.ca. It's specifically aimed at youth, but these could apply to adults as well. So we know that strong social connections lead to better mental health. So things that they had recommended during the pandemic is try not to keep your worries and fears from bottling up. Talk about them with people you trust, whether that be a counselor that you're already working with, a teacher, a parent. And if you know you don't have those supports in your lives, then reaching out to the resources I just mentioned, Child and Youth Counseling, the Youth Wellness Hub, Canadian Mental Health Association. Schedule some social time. If you don't schedule it, it's not going to happen. I've been saying to myself, I need to connect with my girlfriends. I've been saying it for 7 weeks, or almost 7 weeks. And finally, I decided I'm going to download the House Party app, and I'm going to put out a request for us to meet and have a girls' night tomorrow. So if you don't schedule it, it typically doesn't happen. So maybe start plugging in some social time in your calendars.
I didn't know about the House Party app. What is that?
It's very similar to Zoom. I didn't know either until people started inviting me to it. And it's a way to all be together, and people utilize it. What's really popular about House Party is that there's games built in. So you are all together, and then you do trivia, or there's all kinds of fun games. Heads Up, you know, the Ellen game, Heads Up. There's all kinds of fun games, and you can play as a group. So it's a cool, I've only used it a few times, but tomorrow will be the true test for our girls' night. And I told them it was Mental Health Week, and I said, we're going to talk about what's been happening, but we're also going to talk about our concerns. Like, I want to catch up, but I want us all to, you know, share if we're, you know, if we're struggling, if, you know, our kids are frustrating us, whatever it is, we're going to be honest, and we're going to have real conversations tomorrow.
Hashtag be real.
Yes. Hashtag get real. Yeah. And then for those, I want to say, we're always talking about social media, and I'm very, you know, I like to be aware that some people aren't comfortable with social media and don't have access to it. So some other things that came from this mindyourmind.ca is maybe you write a letter to somebody, or you send a card, or a postcard. People like receiving something in the mail. It's not something we're used to anymore. And I think bringing that back during a time of physical distancing could be helpful as well.
My aunt in Winchester did that to me recently. She gave me a card just thinking of you, and had a handwritten letter through it all. And basically it started off with, I know you're busy. I know your phone's always going off the hook. So I thought I'd go old school and let you read it when you had time. I was like, woo! It really
wonderful. Wow, she was already doing this stuff before we mentioned it. Very nice.
Well, she's a former nurse, so her bedside manner has always been like bang on their game. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I find if, for me, just one tip, and this has worked for me, but I find one of the things I'm doing is when I do get time to watch TV, I find I'm leaning more towards watching a comedy, whether it's a TV show or a movie, just something that's going to help make me laugh and lighten the mood surrounding all this.
Absolutely. Sharing a funny meme like Sue was saying, or something humorous on social media. And again, if people don't have social media, calling them up and sharing these positive quotes or these funny jokes, you know, just to boost, because again, as I mentioned, only 8% of people are feeling happy right now. So this is what we need to focus on.
Can I let both of you know that Deadpool 1 and 2, yes, it's got some funny stuff, but there's a lot of bad things that happen to those people. This is how Luke got me into it. Oh, it's funny. It's like a comedy.
Yeah.
It's not a comedy?
It's a downright people get face while he makes jokes. Still not something.
We do have a contest. I know people are maybe strapped for money right now. We're on Monday, Monday, May 11th, we're going to be giving a grocery gift card away. And what we're asking people to do is to go on our CMHA East Facebook page, so CMHA EAST, and just comment like we're doing right now on how you are staying socially connected as a community. So what are you doing in your families, with your friends? Just, you know, write us a comment on the post, and there will be a lucky winner on Monday for that gift card. So if you could use some money towards groceries, please find us on Facebook.
Cool.
That's absolutely fabulous. I love it. And thank you so much, Angele D'Alessio. Canadian Mental Health Week, it is going on right now. And make sure you take care of yourself and take care of others. And when you can be there for them, even when they don't know it, it's going to be quite a treat for them.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me once again.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
Yes, thank you.
That's what I was going to say. Yes.
Happy Mother's Day weekend to you.
Same to you, Sue.
Happy Mother's Day to all our listeners. Yes, thank you.
And good luck with your craft project.
Thank you, yes.
All right. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. This is this week's edition of The Chat with me, Sue Stewart, Pat LaRose, our friend from Canadian Mental Health. We have Angele D'Alessio, and thanks so much to our great sponsor, Riverside Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram on Vincent Massey Drive. Until next week, take care.